Welcome, everyone, to Recovery, the Whole Enchilada, a podcast dedicated to exploring the layers of healing and transformation within the recovery community. And I am Peg McDermott, your host, and I am with my lovely co-host, Heather Hageman. Hello, Heather. Hey, you look lovely.
So do you, my friend.
Thank you. Today, we want to talk fresh starts and talking about personal inventories and intentions for the year and intention versus goals and how that feels as you try it on. I'm more of a goal-oriented person, but I also like the idea of what's my intention for the year, because it's more of a big picture or a bigger vision, right, Heather?
I just had this flashback of all the years that I was drinking. Every New Year's Eve, I would drink too early. And by the time New Year's would come, I would be sober. I would be and I would be so miserable. And I would say to myself, this is the end. I am not going to drink anymore. We're going to start on January 1st. This is going to be my start date. And then with I don't know how many days, I would be back. And usually it could go about 2 weeks. But I just think about that would be one thing I would do. And on top of it, I would be like, I'm going to get thin. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go on this diet. And I just think about year after year, failure after failure. I could never start on the 1st of January. That has changed in sobriety. I have done things differently now because I can't set myself up to fail like this anymore. That's something that I really encourage people to not do that to themselves, but, take a look, take some time, just sit down and look at the year to come. Look at the year that we just went through. One of the things I'm doing right now is I'm teaching a class on how to break a cycle of unhealthy habits. But I'm asking people to bring in the healthy habits of last year. What are some healthy habits that you've done this past year, Peg, that you're bringing into this new year?
Right. I think it's been just being more mindful of my own inventories, really, if it's relational or emotional, behavioral, values, just really looking at what is it that I stand for? What is it that's important to me? And that isn't a resolution, it's a way of living for me. And this time of year really kind of shines as a light on habits and routines and what's supporting my recovery and what's hindering my recovery. And because really everything sort of surrounds my recovery, because my recovery is holistically all of me. And that's what I've learned is, the different aspects of myself and where is it that I'd like to see some growth and where do I feel I have grown? Because I think it's important to acknowledge how we've grown. I think that the goals for me, when I was early in sobriety and even when I was still active, I would set all these goals for myself and be like, I want to do all these things. And it was an impossible task, what I would set up for myself. And there's no way that I could have kept up with all of the resolutions that I had made for myself. Because I just felt like I'm really broken and I really need a lot of work here. And I'm not broken. And I'm still looking at how I can better integrate the principles and recovery principles and spiritual principles into my life. And that has helped me to get a lot more simple about my resolutions or intentions. So last year, my intention was to grow spiritually along spiritual lines and meditate more and really connect with my higher power on a more one-on-one basis. And I managed to do that just about every day. And the meditation made a big difference in my conscious contact. And I want to carry that into this year and maybe expand the time that I spend meditating. And also look at my emotional inventory and triggers and patterns and responses to life. Because regardless of how much time we have, right, we still are human and life still is very daily. And there are things that will happen. And if I'm not in a good space, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, then I get triggered a lot easier. And so it was important to me to find out what are those triggers as far as behaviors, not taking things personally, not making it about me. And when I'm not spiritually fit, I take things a lot more personally than I know they're intended. I know they're not intended the way I'm taking them. And that still happens. And so I really want to be mindful of that. It's like, where am I? How am I feeling? How am I feeling in my body? What am I feeling? And being able to name it.
I was thinking, what are some of the things that I'm bringing into this year from last year? I just will be honest. I went through a period in my sobriety where I went out of the rooms and I went into church circles and I went into yoga circles. And I found that was good, because I'm living in the world, but I wasn't going to as many meetings as I, had done in the past. And so one of the things I did last year is I made an intention to go to women's meetings and to be very, to get back involved, in the community. And the best way to do that is sponsor. So I took on a couple sponsees, which I hadn't. All my sponsees are grown-ups now. They all have 20 years of sobriety, and we're all friends now. So I thought, I'll just take on. And then I took on a woman who's got about 5 years of sobriety. And I got to tell you, that makes it all real again, brings it all back, reminds me of, how do we take care of ourselves when we're first sober? This idea of self-care, this is another piece that came up for me last year. I had several, more than 3 health issues that took me into a hospital. And so this was another important, awakening that I had to really hunker down and look at, okay, what do I need to do to take care of myself? What really take care of myself? And for me, I really needed to look at everything, my sleep, how I'm eating, what I'm eating, the people I'm surrounding myself with. I mean, I had to do an upgrade. And I like to look at it like that rather than look at it as I had to take away things that, that are harming me, but to look at it as, as letting go of these unhealthy, let's say, habits, because they were, and bringing in healthier ways of being. And I love this. I discovered this, and maybe a lot of you know this. I don't know. There's these new words called habit stacking, and I don't think it's new, but it was new for me. And one of the things I was realizing, because I'm teaching, I learn a lot when I teach because I'm learning what I most need to know. And this habit stacking is so great because when you have a healthy habit, already ingrained it's in your autonomic system, it's subconscious, and you just do it. You can stack another healthy habit, that habit, and then they will kind of bind, and you're able to bring a healthy habit in. For example, brushing my teeth. I always stretch when I brush my teeth. I got my toothbrush in my mouth, and I'm doing a little stretching. I do a little twisting, I move my spine. There are just different ways that you can bring in these healthier habits rather than always this deprivation and this, I've got to, oh no, another thing I've got to let go of. And for us people in recovery, that's not good for us mentally. We don't like letting go of things. We hold on to things a very long time. But when we can actually create, and this is ultimately what my focus is this year, is I really am building an inner home, an inner sanctuary, so that I can go internally and be solid and feel safe and feel my feelings and move my feelings through my body as energies and motion, and not be hijacked and always trying to, I'm hijacked by something, and then I will try to bring something else in that to feel better, an instant something, whatever it is. Today we've talked about this before. It's like watching hours of a crime show or whatever it is. So how can I just build this healthy home? And that's what I want to do this year. So I'm really working with all the layers of me to get into some really great ways of living, and, so that I can be this solid, earned, secure person in the world. It's forever work, isn't it? I mean, it's like, you would think after what, 20, I'm in my 24th year of sobriety, that would be like, okay, I'm done. Check it off the list. No, it's constant. I have got to be awake. I will fall asleep. I will fall back into old habits. And I want to create new habits that really, bring joy to my life.
Right. That those identifying those daily habits and routines and those things that either support our recovery or hinder our recovery. And for me, if it's supporting my recovery, it means that I'm moving away from active drinking or using. And if it hinders it, I'm moving closer to what hurt me, and we're making choices every day. They're little choices, but they add up. And, identifying the daily habits, like me wanting to come in earlier, and that's been a challenge for me, getting into my office earlier. I don't have a boss. I run my own business, and I get what I need to get done. And at the same time, I'm like, I need to gain some time somewhere, and it will be in those earlier morning hours. But yet there's something inside of me that's resistant to that. Maybe because I work late, I want to stay, home and sort of take care of myself and kind of take a look at what my day looks like. And during that time, I do meditate and I do read and I contemplate the day, and I just am during that time. And I won't sacrifice that time because it's a really good way to start the day. And at the same time, I'll start reading or I'll start scrolling through my phone, and I get sucked into that vortex. And then before I know it, another 30 minutes has gone by. And so this year, rather than saying, I'm going to get in at such and such a time, it's been more like I'm going to work on getting enough rest and starting my day in a positive way and working on getting in a little earlier, and make it like maybe 15-minute increments so they're realistic. So if I get in at 9, maybe I come in starting next week at 8:45, and then maybe the week after that it's 8:30. So it's small movements in a positive direction versus I'm going to come in at 6 a.m. every morning, and I will never, ever do that. I know I won't. I won't set myself up like that. But I think it's making sure that I'm realistic about what I know I can and can't do, or what I'm willing to do and not do. And that's, like you said, habit stacking is really, I love that. I'll make a shake in the morning, and it's got all kinds of protein and greens and good stuff in it. And I'll take my vitamins with that shake. So for me, that's been sort of stacking those two things together at the beginning of the day. So it's a good start. When I go to fill up my water bottle over at our water thingy, I pray. And it's just during that time, it's a big water thing. So I have some time to pray again and really connect with God during that time. So, yeah, looking at my routines and where can I add small successes throughout my day and week and month that don't feel overwhelming, that feel like I'm setting myself up to succeed, to share it with my sponsor and have her tell me, hey, it sounds to me like that seems realistic, or you might be putting a little bit more on your plate than what you can realistically complete. So maybe you stretch out the time that you want to get this done. You know, as a recovering alcoholic, it was, and sometimes can still be, all or nothing. So if I didn't meet that goal, then I'd be like, well, then I'm not doing it. And I may not actively say that to myself, but that's the decision that I've made, because I'm like, oh, I'm not able to do it, so I'm just going to move on to something else. And that self-talk is really important. And so if I miss the mark, that's what I call it. I missed the mark. I'll do better tomorrow. So I'm not about beating myself up, because that's not productive. That kind of self-flagellation, is that the word when you're beating yourself with?
Yeah.
And I grew up with that, and I don't need to continue doing it to myself.
It's so funny. I've been sitting here and I was like, okay, I want to talk about, exactly what you just, the all or nothing, the black and white thinking, and the way we talk to ourselves. And I love that, because it's like we're transmitting. But I'll just add a little bit more to this, because this workshop that I'm teaching, the series I'm teaching, that's one of the things I'm bringing up, is that we have to talk in a kind voice to ourselves. It is so important. And so what I'm tasking them to do, and I don't call it homework, I call it home play, because right there, that shifts the energy, right? Homework, home play. So I'm having people just look in the mirror, and without judgment of how you were looking, but just look in your eyes and just say, hey, hi, good morning, Heather. I'm going to have fun with you today. We're going to have fun today. Just having this voice that's just never attacking and damning. And I think a lot of us have that critical inner critic, give it whatever name, but it's vicious. It was vicious for me, and it really drove me for these goals. I was nothing unless I was accomplishing something. And on top of it, because I'm also had an eating disorder, I was nothing because I wasn't at the weight that I was supposed to be. I have this like whip hitting me, like, you can't even enjoy life because you're not thin enough. I mean, this is just the crazy mind chatter. And I think this journey, so much of this journey is to let go of the mind chatter, the alcohol noise, the food noise, the goal noise. Allow yourself to just be kind and gentle. And of course you're feeling overwhelmed. Of course this is not easy. Of course you're not, whatever it is, just this kind, gentle, heart, resonant voice. This is what we're needing. And so I do remember significantly in early recovery, my sponsor, it wasn't my sponsor, it was my therapist number 13. She said, I always have to laugh at that, because I think I counted 18 therapists. But anyway, she said, I'm going to tell you right now, are not able, you cannot make any goals right now. Your goal today is to clean the bathroom. Your goal today is to make food for your kids. I mean, it was like, I had such I was not living life. And so I love the compassion, the self-compassion now. I mean, every New Year, I do have that little thought, I'm going to do sun salutations every day. I'm going to do 4 of them every day, for the whole year. I have all these like funny things that I'm going to set myself up to do. And I was like, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. But
I'm really so glad that you're teaching that, because we need more of that as far as how do we talk to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we're human. We're not going to hit the mark every time. And if we've done just a little bit better than we did yesterday, that's okay.
Yeah.
And, learning to celebrate those small victories and staying committed to our sobriety is important, especially this time of year. I was so happy to see the holidays end. And it's just a lot of traveling and hustle and bustle and out of routines. And I was just glad to be home and just to chill. And I spent some time with some friends this weekend. We do like an annual retreat at this really cool farm. It's beautiful. And, we have our own meeting. And, I shared about things that I was feeling and what I was feeling. And I felt safe in this group of women to share this, just as I do in the rooms. So I might have gone into a little more detail than I would in a meeting, but it was about just staying relevant, and sometimes feeling that I'm not.
No.
And that relevance getting tied to doing versus being. And I was feeling like, as I get older, am I as relevant? And that is something that nobody can say to me, oh, you are relevant, Peg. You are. If I don't believe it, then no matter how many times you say it to me, it won't matter. Because that is something I have to cultivate with God within myself. Because that is emotional, what is the word I'm looking for? Health, good emotional health. And again, if I say to myself, I am relevant today because I'm alive, because I'm drawing breath, and I'm here for a reason. And that reason is to be of service to my fellow alcoholics and addicts and to stay sober and to share what I can about my own experience, strength, and hope. And but it felt good to say it out loud rather than let it bounce around in my head. And as I heard myself say it, the air just went out of it, because I realized as I was hearing myself say it, that it's how untrue it is. And that that was the kind of self-talk that I must have been having that I wasn't conscious in sharing like that. And it's such a gift because it's a tool that we're able to share things and process them.
Yes.
And I'll share things sometimes in a meeting and I'll be like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was feeling like that. I didn't realize I was feeling angry or sad or whatever it might be. For me, it comes up when I process by talking with other safe, recovering people like you. I call you many times and I say, this is going on. And I know I can say what I need to say to Heather because I won't be judged. It's safe. And you will mirror back to me what you see in me. And again, that helps me it reminds me that, yes, I am valuable. I am relevant. When we are herd animals, we do need to get feedback from our fellows, right? I just can't be reliant on it for my self-worth.
It's interesting when I proposed this idea of looking in the mirror and speaking kindly to yourself, and even like standing, in front of yourself and not cutting and slicing. A lot of women, especially this aging process, we're looking at ourselves, we're looking at, I got this, I got that, can we stand in a neutral way and just look at the essence of us And let me tell you, some of the women in this group were like, no. I mean, that like one had said that she was tasked to stand naked in front of the mirror. I said, well, that's a far reach the first time. Let's start with looking at her eyes, and I go, is there anything that you it was a very humbling moment and a very vulnerable moment because she said, I don't like anything about the way I look now that I'm getting older. And then other people were saying, well, you've got really nice eyes. Could you just look in your eyes? So you see this. So if you're going to try to shift into the self-care and build this safe internal home, we've got to really work with the structure and really find reverence for us at this point that's not based on the models and the magazines, but is based on this wonderful, like we are amazing. We are miracles in this. We're miracles, those of us that are in recovery, because really we're not supposed to even be here. There is just no way. If I've even thought about it, there's no way that I would still be here. And so this is really vital that we, really cultivate this incredible loving compassion for all of us, for all our layers of ourselves. And, but it's painful because I think this aging process, which of course I thought I'm going to do another workshop on this, on the aging process, how to embrace it with joy and appreciation,
Right.
and really embrace it, not just fake it, but really embrace it.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And I do hear that a lot as far as um, how folks see themselves, their self-image. And, I don't hear enough positive i- image talk. And,
Yes.
we live in a tough, our society, reveres
The young.
this young, eh, just the young. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to go back to
No.
when I was younger. And I love her. I embrace her, that younger version of myself. But oh my gosh, I was so unhappy. And I really love myself today. I still have thoughts of, am I measuring up? And what's important is those questions are going to come up. The answers are what's important. Am I measuring up? And I'll pray on it. And a lot of times I'll hear, relative to what? Do you know what I mean? Am I measuring up
Yes.
relative to what?
Yes.
And these unrealistic expectations that either I've placed on myself or others have placed on me. And, that it's okay to have those thoughts. It's how do we process them and then integrate them back into our sense of self and our identity? Do we say I'm not measuring up and I need to do better because I have failed so many times in the past, and that's what is left in our mind and it gets integrated into us? Or can we shape another story? Yes, I have missed the mark in the past and I did my very best, and had I been able to do better at that time, I would have done better. So I've learned each time, just as you have. And now I know better. And there'll be times I'll be doing things now, and my future self will say, had I known better, I would have done better. So we learn by sharing, by having realistic expectations of ourselves, by having a bigger, more loving picture of ourselves and our life and how we fit into that beautiful life. And it's about living along those spiritual lines. And for me, knowing that there is this loving being that does not judge me. And I would wish that I wasn't judging myself. And I've learned, that critical voice can rear its head, but I don't chastise it. I basically ask it, what is it that you're trying to teach me right now? What is it that you need from me? What are you trying to protect me from? Because those voices that come in, those parts that come in, they're there to protect us from a difficult past. And I've learned to befriend them and not weaponize them.
Befriend and update them, because oftentimes they just don't know that we have grown and that we are adulting in our lives. They're still kind of got the same job they used to have. You gotta give them a pay raise.
Exactly.
But I will say, I just, coming back to the beginning of this conversation, I am so glad that I don't do this resolution stuff and set myself up anymore for failing. I do not need anything to make me feel negative about myself. I mean, every day that we don't drink it used to be good enough, but we want the whole enchilada. You know, we want to go further than that. We want to really work with all the things that still block us from the sunlight of this program, of this life, the sober living.
I love that. And I love you.
I love you. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Recovery, the Whole Enchilada. Next time, Heather and I will be talking about, this is going to be a good, processing guilt and shame.
Oh, yes.
I love it. Cannot wait. And hope you won't miss it either. And so make sure to please follow us on Apple Podcast and on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your review would mean a whole lot to us. And we love you. And know that you are not alone. And until next time, stay strong and keep growing.